No chips, don't let the salad win. That's the message in terms of nature of the food maybe that we consume in Wales.
It's Wrexham.
He's done it, the magic little man, Watkin. Oh, he scored! Steve Watkin has got a goal!
Ball breaks for Foden, it's in early, as Rush likes it, and he'll chase it, he'll collect it, Ian Rush!
Bennett, and that's a second for Wrexham. Well, classic, changing defence into attack.
Conley! 1-0 to Wrexham, Carl Conley's done it!
Trundle for options, put it back to Morels. Oh, it's a good save! Oh no, it is, and it's in the back of the net. Andy Morel. What a chance! What a goal! What a goal from Al Robson Carter! Folks, good wicket kids up. Something special is happening here tonight. Wales are going into the semi-finals of the European Championship.
Wanagate, Ferguson has definitely won it for Wrexham now.
And here's Mendy! There's that race-class roar again! Saved by Foster!
Wales are going to the Euros next summer. Wilkinson's wonderful Welsh women.
Wales! Wales have done it! They've reached the World Cup! It's him again! Champions! Wrexham are promoted! They have their storybook ending!
The first team in history to eat more chips and not let salad win.
Hello and welcome to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast for one of the most recognisable flags in the Welsh football supporters universe. In a week when 3 people have been jailed for insurance fraud after claiming their cars were damaged by a bear, only for the assailant to be somebody dressed in a bear costume. The trio used a bear suit to stage the fake attacks inside a Rolls-Royce and 2 Mercedes in an effort to get their paws on the $141,839 or £111,788 in insurance payouts. Home surveillance footage submitted to an insurance company shows the so-called bear entering and damaging a 2010 Rolls-Royce Ghost while it was parked near Lake Arrowhead, northeast of Los Angeles, on the 28th of January 2024. Investigators later found 2 additional fraudulent claims submitted to separate insurance companies involving different vehicles on the same date in the same location. Detectives later discovered the bear suit inside one of the suspects' homes, and the department had called the investigation Operation Bear Claw. The defendants all pleaded no contest to felony insurance fraud and were on Thursday each sentenced to 180 days in jail to be served through a weekend program. Rawr. Speaking of frauds, if you can bear it, it's Jamie and Daz.
That sounds like the worst script for Cocaine Bear 2 I've ever heard.
It makes you wonder, anybody who can afford a Rolls Royce, what are they trying to do in terms of that claim? I mean, just
you know
sell
what's
the
been
car.
funny? I didn't put a picture on it, but if you look at the bear suit, it is rubbish. Absolutely, it's like a really crap one. So yeah, incredible, gentlemen. Good evening. Good to see you both.
Evening.
First things first, Daz, the company looks set to end their 13-year kit partnership with Adidas, as Sudo seem to be lining up moving forward. Sudo are based in Manchester and make the current Wolves shirt. They have been praised for bespoke designs rather than the templates, as the big manufacturers tend to turn out, and they work closely with the clients on the look of any new shirt. Are you surprised by that, Daz? I mean, is this purely because Cymru want to have a more bespoke shirt, or is this something to do with money, do you think?
I don't know enough about money to know, what these kind of deals, how are they structured, because there's something about the Adidas kits which it was nice going back. It was nice going back to that legacy because we've been with them before. But I suppose with new kits all the time, but lots of companies, lots of teams pick a new company, and you've got to start somewhere. And if it's true, I mean, I'd say the only one I've ever seen is the Wolves team. I don't know any other. Well, certainly not in the UK. I don't know where they're based. Did you say they're based in Manchester?
Well, their head office is in Manchester. So
Yeah. So you would have thought there would have been a few more, I don't know, maybe sort of ventures into some other clubs, really. But to go for a national side is that's pretty big. But if they are willing to go down that sort of bespoke, tailored, to because I do think the Adidas kits this year have been particularly formulaic, particularly unless you're the German national team, and then they get a really cool one. But
Of course.
but they're allowed. That's acceptable.
Absolutely.
But really, there's a lot of countries, with the same pretty much template, and it just feels really lazy. So, let's see. Let's see. I wouldn't want it to be like the Wolves' third kit, which is like this vomit pattern. So as long as it's not that one, then I think we're okay. So let's see. But it's still a rumor at the moment, I guess. So
It is. Would price be a factor for you as well? Because we have seen the shirt starting to really creep up now in price for what you're getting.
Potentially, because I did a quick look and see what the club shop type thing is for, well, not the club shop, sorry, but what the going rate is for a pseudo kit for Wolves. And it is nearer 40, 45, 50, whereas, we know that Adidas ones have crept up significantly more. But I don't know if that's this year's or if that's an old one, because obviously there might be a premium still to go on it if it's the new kit. So, let's see what comes of it. They don't look awful, apart from the third kit. So let's see. But it would be a shame to lose Adidas, but I think Adidas have brought it on themselves.
Absolutely. No vomit kits, please. If we are in the Championship next season, Jim, some of the promotion relegation situations have been resolved this week. Coventry City have now been crowned champions of the Championship, so massive congratulations to them. Wolverhampton Wanderers, speaking of them, have been relegated from the Premier League after only one season. So we'll be seeing them next year if we're still here. Lincoln City and Cardiff City have been confirmed back in the Championship for next season. So again, if we're here, we'll see both of those. One of them I'm really pleased because Lincoln is a great away day. The other one I'm not so pleased about, but we'll deal with it. That's fine. Daz is happy because maybe I'll finally get him to go to a Wrexham game in his doorstep, which will be great because it'd be great if we can do that, Daz, because I'm sure the allocation will be fine. Because that will be sold out. You can guarantee all the Cardiff fans will come out for that one, so that's fine. Obviously, we've known about Sheffield Wednesday for a while. They are relegated, but the big news that happened last night, we're recording on a Wednesday, is Leicester City have also had back-to-back relegations, putting them next season in League One. Also from the Premier League, Burnley look pretty much nailed on to be relegated, and still to be decided, West Ham, Tottenham Hotspur, Nottingham Forest, and Leeds are all under threat of taking that third space. Jim, let's talk about Leicester first, because you and I were chatting about it before we recorded. This is possibly one of the biggest football stories in the last 50 years, because this is a side who won the Premier League 10 years ago at 5,000 to 1, won the FA Cup 5 years ago, and then have in the last 3 years spent over 400 million. They lost 73 million last year. They do have parachute payments because they got relegated from the Premier League, but apparently they've already banked those and borrowed on them, the 35 million that they get, and they've spent it. So they've got a wage bill of 9 million last year. They're going to get only 2 million from TV sale. I mean, fire sale, I don't think you might as well just chuck a load of petrol in the barn and chuck a match on it and walk away. Because how are they going to survive in League One?
I'll give them 50 quid for their training ground.
Well, that costs 10 million pound a year just to run.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, look, in all seriousness, it's not nice to see. There's I suppose there's lots of elements to it. I mean, you just said yourself there. 10 years ago this season, they won the Premier League, for Christ's sake, and now they find themselves in League One playing Bromley, which is it's just unbelievable. And I suppose it just goes to show how kind of you shouldn't take anything for granted. This kind of success train that we've been on these last few seasons, and how rosy everything seems to to be and feel at the minute. I think, you know, here's a living example of how things can change. So, you know, we should enjoy every minute of what we're going through at the minute. You do fear for Leicester, you know, from a financial point of view. You know, when we were talking about the finances a few weeks ago, I said, I think, you know, I said at the time that if you look at all these football finance figures that have been released in the last sort of month or so, it tells a pretty damning story of the industry, for want of a better phrase, you know, kind of how financially delicate it is. And I think if you look at the situation Leicester are in, it feels like it's going to end in a horrible mess unless somebody can throw some pretty serious money into it. Because, like you and I were saying before, you know, they've got players on £90,000 a week, £75,000 a week, £60,000 a week, and as much as you know, their approach next season might be, right, we need to get rid of all those players. Even if they release them all for free, it's somebody's. If you've got a 2-year deal on 90 grand a week, you're not going to walk away from that, are you? So, you know, they're not going to be able to afford to pay these up. So yeah, it's going to be a fascinating situation to kind of see how it progresses from here. But yeah, unbelievable.
How different is this to Cardiff City? You know, a big club that should never have gone down to League One last year. You know, they were arguably mismanaged and certainly had a turnover of managers, and they haven't really boosted their squad and are already proven themselves to be way better than League One and sort of come straight back up. And congratulations to them and all that. If anybody. And the goal that helped them go up this weekend was an Exeter goal, which the goalkeeper scored, which was
that was brilliant. And he properly went crazy. Look, 97th minute, wasn't it? I think to get the
something
draw.
Like that. He did a proper Alisson last minute effort going up to and did it. So, but Cardiff I get promoted. So, but they've ended up regrouping in such a way that actually was a healthy thing. I think they've had to really reevaluate what they do, how they do it. They managed to keep a good number of their players just about on the books. Now, I hear all of those figures you talked about wages. I don't think Cardiff were quite in that league because they've not been that recently in the Prem. This was so a whole bunch of Championship wages being paid to League One players who now are back in Championship. So I get those margins, but you know, there's something quite humbling about an experience where if you've got, and it will make the management have to really think carefully. They can't just, you know, piss away whatever windfalls they get when they get it, and have to restructure, rethink, and back a manager. Just keep one manager for a period of time and build confidence in the team. And I think, you know, I am surprised it's Leicester. There are plenty of other clubs in the Prem or recent Championship that could have done the same thing.
The whole thing is, you know, and I think we fell a little bit guilty of it when we went out of the Football League. That whole adage of we're too big to go down. Surely, if any team would to hear that ringing in their ears, it's got to be Tottenham Hotspur. How are they in such precarious position where potentially they could end up in the Championship next season, Daz? That's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that they have got the quality players that if they just gather around that very good manager they've now got, they could. I mean, they were unlucky at the weekend. That equaliser, yes, it came in not very late, but it. I think Spurs deserved to win that game, and I think if they play like that, and the fans were behind them this time, they've been silent, absolutely silent for weeks. I think they saw something there, and I think that could be enough to get them the momentum they need. Whereas I fear for West Ham. I mean, they're still just a big club.
I was just gonna say, as much as we're saying about how crazy it'd be for Tottenham to come down, I think you've got, you know, West Ham probably not too far behind.
Is that quick straw poll? Is that who you think is going to go out of the four clubs I mentioned? Do you think it's going to be West Ham?
Yeah, because I think Leeds are on. I think Leeds have done enough. I think they've got some good momentum, and the FA Cup shouldn't be too much of a distraction. Forest have really found a form. Admittedly, it's one player, but I think they're doing really well. I I don't see where the upturn comes from West Ham at the moment, whereas I can see Spurs finding a way. So if you were going to absolutely make me put some money on it, I think I would go for a West Ham relegation, to be
Karen
honest.
Brady's just quit, hasn't she? After being, I think she was there for 16 years, co-chair and whatever. So
Yeah, controversial, but
yeah.
not as in her leaving, but
No.
controversial,
character. Yeah,
character.
definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll wait and see. That we'll find out in the next few weeks. So Saturday, and Wrexham were back at home at the Stoke Kairos for a proper Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. match against Stoke City. Jamie, let's look at the lineup first. Wow. You and I both looked at each other and did the communal head slapping. 4 changes from the loss to Birmingham. First start in 8 months for Danny Ward in goal for Arthur Okonkwo. Dom Hyam in for Max Cleworth. Josh Windass in for Lewis O'Brien, and Sam Smith in for Kiefer Moore. We talked about Josh Windass starting, got that. But which one of this is the biggest shock for you? Danny in for Arthur or Max being dropped? And I'm saying dropped, not rested.
Yeah, I mean
It's dropped.
I think that's really important terminology. I think at this stage of the season, with when this was played, 4 games to go, you're not resting players. They've been dropped. Max and Arthur have been dropped. I was less shocked about Max being dropped for a couple of reasons. One, because I think he I wouldn't say struggled. That's not fair, but I don't think he's been as effective recently. And I also think, and probably the more important kind of point is, I think before the run-in, I think Parky likes experience, and he likes, players that have been there and done it. So I was less surprised by that one. But the one which surprised me massively was Danny Ward coming in for Arthur. If you go back to the start of the season, when we had the conversation about Danny Ward and we signed him, and obviously there was a lot of people kind of turning their nose up at it, and we were very much for the signing. He's an international, for God's sake. Why wouldn't you want him on your books? I think most of us were probably surprised that he started the season as number 1. And was really unfortunate to get that injury at Millwall, but obviously then that's given an opportunity to Arthur. But I am flabbergasted, I'll be honest. I am flabbergasted. I know there's been some sort of criticism kind of directed towards Arthur in recent games. Could he have done better with a couple of goals we conceded? But I certainly didn't think he'd done enough to be dropped. So I was flabbergasted, and I feel it's quite telling. I feel it's quite a telling move for me.
Hold on to that thought, because I want to talk about that after the Oxford game, because I've got a couple of thoughts on it from what I saw yesterday. Daz, we obviously know, we take our Wrexham shirt off, put the Cymru shirt on. We know Danny, big favourite of mine, always has been. The fact that he's a Wrexham lad, played in the Premiership, was Cymru's number 1 for quite a while, and always stood up, pulled out some amazing saves, part of the 2016 squad, which we hold on such a high pedestal. Are you surprised by this change? Because Arthur has been fairly, he's not been awful. He's made some key saves in key moments. For 4 games left to go, for Parky to do that, are you surprised?
A little. My rationale probably aligns with what Jamie had said, which is when you started the season, he was obviously considered your new number 1. And so when he came back from fitness, and so seeing him on the bench for the Wales team, seeing him on the bench then for Wrexham games, I'd assumed, therefore, he's well enough to play. On that basis, if he's well enough to play and he's your number 1 goalkeeper, and arguably your better goalkeeper, if we want to be simplistic about it, then why shouldn't he put him back? But I think I'm with Jamie on this, which is it does come with a lot of it does intrigue me to the thinking of Parkinson about the fact where that you've got Arthur's clearly a confidence player, and he's done really well. I mean, yes, he's not had the competition that maybe Parky was looking for in terms of having Danny Ward there to push him, to make sure he knows he's not simply the number one. He's got to earn his place. And okay, so maybe Arthur didn't earn it in quite the right way, but he kind of proved a lot of naysayers wrong. He's proved himself, and I don't think you get to sixth in the league on the luck of a goalkeeper having a good run. So, but there have been, as you both said, moments throughout the season where decision making and all of that. So you can understand why maybe Parky considers Danny Ward to be the stronger player, but. I don't know what he's been like in training. I don't know what, but the idea that then Arthur now feels for the second time this season very clearly branded as the number 2 goalkeeper. It's quite a bold move, and for a confidence player like Arthur, that's going to take some, I don't know, not therapy, but certainly some psychological discussion and mentally getting him back in. Because if you need him again next weekend or the weekend after or whatever, it's going to take something, But going back to my original point, which is Danny Ward is still probably the better goalkeeper, and so if you have many times, if you've got a striker who's better than another one, you start with your strongest striker or your strongest defender. I appreciate form comes into it. And all of that, but Danny Ward hasn't had a chance to do that. So it was brave though, because we couldn't be sure how fit Danny Ward was, and obviously we haven't seen him in training.
No. And we've only seen Danny Ward in a Wrexham shirt 5 times this year, so we don't know what Danny Ward we're getting, strictly speaking, do we? Because he was doing well, and then he had that injury, and then we didn't see him. So,
but I think you said it there. He was doing well. I think everything so far that you've seen in a Wrexham shirt has been positive. And remain so. This is the thing. I don't think we can doubt the importance of a good vocal goalkeeper, and Danny Ward is one of those. He has been around some big names. He was a number 2 at Liverpool. He was the number 2 at Leicester when they had Schmeichel back in their good old days. He's been an international. You don't get to be that goalkeeper at those clubs and not have some sort of understanding of the role. Whereas I just sense from Arthur, he is just a good shot stopper. He is a good technical goalkeeper.
He's very young, isn't he? He's very young for a goalkeeper. He's like early 20s.
Yeah, and I don't know how he learns this other than by watching somebody who's better at it do it, which this could be useful. But he must have seen that at Arsenal when he was there. He must have seen this in other places. So do you utilize that experience from Danny Ward and get Arthur stronger in those areas? But you'd like to think some of your defenders would have dragged him along, would have picked him and saying, "Call it. Be more vocal. Let me know when, what do you want? Whereas Danny Ward doesn't give anybody any shit, and give him shit.
I watched that firsthand last night. He was properly, the amount of times where there was stuff going on, and he was basically coming out of his box and talking to the back 3 while they were up near the halfway line, and he's screaming at Dom Hyam, and he's screaming at Scar, and he's screaming at Doyle, and he's gesticulating, and he's doing lots of hand gestures, lots of communication, something you don't see with Arthur. And that's one thing I want to bring up later. Let's park Arthur for a minute, because I do want to talk about that a bit later on because of the Oxford game. Aside from obviously for this game, for the Stoke game, aside from Thompson's long range strike, there was little to shout about for either side really during the KG opening period, but Wrexham took complete control shortly after the half-hour mark, after Ollie Rathbone's shot was cleared off the line by Ben Pearson. I honestly thought that was in. And then Thomason from the corner curled into the net to give Wrexham the lead. His second goal of the season, or was it? The answer is no, it was not. Josh Windass managed to head it in at the back post. It looked for me at the time if it was going straight in, but the photographs are there, and he made a point of coming out on social media afterwards and saying, "Oi, that's my goal," claiming it, proper thing. Jamie, you were sitting in Y9 on Saturday, which is obviously right down that end, so you probably got a good shot of this, good view of this goal. First of all, the shot from Ollie, and then the corner. What did you make of those?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the shot was Ollie's shot was a great effort. Again, like you, I thought it was in, but it was a good block. The corner was fantastic. I mean, like you say, it's not the first time he's done it this season. Why he's not been taking corners more consistently is beyond me, because he's the best corner taker that we've got. I guess I can understand. I think maybe the thought process is that he's maybe a bit more mobile as being one of the ones that stays back. But as he's shown us this season, when he's got that in his locker, I think it's something we've got to utilise more. I'll be honest, when, like you say, I was this end of the pitch, so I had a reasonably good view of it. But I'll be honest, when it went in, I thought it had gone straight in from the corner. It was only when I watched the replay after that I could see the touch that Josh Windass had got. And so quite rightly, he was claiming it, because that thing is, at this level, it's probably worth a bit of money to him scoring a goal. It's not going to be peanuts, is it? It's probably these guys will be on probably quite handsome goal bonuses. But it was all about delivery. It was such a great corner into the box, and a horrible area for the goalkeeper and for the defenders. But like you say, up until that point, really, it was a bit of a dull game. It wasn't a great game to watch.
Stoke were poor.
Yeah,
they were really poor.
I was going to say you've got to acknowledge the fact that Stoke were awful, really, really bad. You can have a bit of sympathy, I think, for their fans, because it looked to me like they checked out already. We were saying last week about Stoke being a team or a game for us that, playing against a team that literally had nothing to play for, and that's how it came across. They looked like they literally couldn't have cared less. It was quite funny that the Stoke fans took it in good spirits, because they were singing 16th again, ole ole, and all sorts of stuff like that, weren't they? But I think Mark Robbins, after the game, in his interview, was quite rightly seething, and quite rightly so, because as we've said before, when you've got people representing your club, playing for your team, you want to see commitment, and you want to see effort, and you want to see passion, no matter what stage of the season that you're at. So the fact that they, like say, looked like they checked out, to me was poor from them. But equally, I think the only frustration from our point of view really is that we didn't. We talked last week about taking the handbrake off and going at them, and I don't think we did that. We never looked under any threat. At the end of the day, they've not had a shot on target in the whole game, so that kind of tells its own story. But what I would say is, I think they were there for the taking, and I think I hope we don't come to regret not taking them to the sword more than we did. It was the important thing was the result and getting the 3 points. But as the game went on, I did feel like they were there for the taking, to be honest.
Well, a little more than a minute later, we were 1-0 up. A little more than a minute later, Windass intercepted Aaron Creswell's undercooked back pass. It was a terrible back pass before Cooley slotting beyond Stoke goalkeeper Bazunu. I mean, Jamie, that moves him above Kiefer Moore as the top Wrexham goal scorer this term. It also put him as the most goals scored by a Wrexham player at this level ever. So he's now already painted himself in the historical record books. And could you meet a guy who gives less of a toss than Josh Windass? Because the post game interview, he was asked, how did you feel to be this, the guy who scored the most goals ever for Wrexham at this level? He's like, I don't care. Literally, I don't care. To the point where the fans last night at the Oxford game, they were singing Windass again, ole ole, which was
Yeah.
fine. And then they were shouting, he never smiles, ole ole, he never smiles, ole ole, which just. And last night, well, everybody else came over to clap. He sort of came over, did 2 claps, and walked away. He was the first to walk away. So so a lot of the other podcasts have said this week, if Josh Windass would be a bit more open to the crowd and show a bit more reaction, he would become a fan's favourite. But I mean, Daz, is this a bit of nonsense because he refuses to do the whole, punching the badge and all this kind of stuff? People think that he's not passionate and he doesn't relate to the fans. I think that's a bit unfair, isn't it?
I think it is. I think people respond in different ways. I mean, like I say, he's not there to get the plaudits. He wants to score goals, and I think he does. Well, anybody who goes to social media and posts "that's my goal," he cares enough. He cares enough. So there was a moment, I think, in one of the highlight reels I saw, there was just, he turned, he smiled to the crowd at some point after the second goal, and he's kind of going, I got 2 goals, So there's a moment there where you can see these things matter, but just because he doesn't vocally or visually give you the clues that he's enjoying the moment, I don't know. It's like watching, Ronnie O'Sullivan sometimes. You just think like, he just couldn't care, but that's because he enjoys what he does. He's good at it, and he gets on with it. It's not for you; it's for my own benefit sometimes. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that it becomes. I don't think he needs to go over the top. I think he could probably turn it up a little. I think when you've got yourselves traveling all the way to these far-flung, cities of Oxford and places like that, there's an element of respect for what you've done, because you've paid the money to go do. You're not getting paid to be there like he is. So I do think there's an element of just every now and again, just be a bit more respectful in those moments. But badges and and all. People do it in different ways, and I got no issue with being a bit more of a silent type and just getting on with it.
It's always difficult for me because I remember seeing Lee Trundle kiss the badge and whatever the crowd, and then 3 days later went to Swansea. So
yeah,
it's always a tricky one for me. I mean, yes, sorry, mate.
The thing is, you're 100% right with what you're saying, but I understand the concept with the whole kissing the badge, touching the badge, and all that jazz. But just somewhere in between would be nice. I think
that's what Daz said about maybe turn up the wick a little bit rather than
exactly that. I think it's. I mean, he's such an intriguing character. I mean, as the season's gone on, I think you have to say, why is he being left out as much as he has through the course of the season? Why was he not playing against Birmingham? He's in such red hot form at the minute. He should be playing every game. But he's such an enigma. He's such an interesting character. And look, there's a part of me that thinks he maybe behaves the way he does deliberately now.
Yeah.
Because there's been so much talk about it. But like you've just said, like Daz just said, I think as a fan, like a great point about the fact that you've paid your hard-earned money to travel, in this case to Oxford or wherever. Obviously Stoke at home last week before that, away to West Brom, wherever it is. Paying as a fan, and the fans that go, paying an awful lot of money, taking time off work or whatever it might be to go and watch your team, support your team. And I think maybe where some of the criticism has come from this year is just show some emotion, some emotion, some form of celebrating. Just, and I think that would make such a big difference. It would make such a big difference to how the fans feel towards him. I think if he was good, if he was
the problem is, Jim, I don't think he cares about that. He's very much, I'm here to do a job, right? I'm going to do my job. If I'm scoring goals and if we're winning games, then I'm
Yeah.
doing my job. He's not. It's kind of
No.
like, when you go to the office in your job, you don't want to do a report and then get a rousing round of applause and everybody, adulation and whatever, do you?
No, and respect to him for having that opinion, but let's also add the context that you're not really comparing being a professional footballer to knocking out spreadsheets. It's not the same thing, is it?
You've never
Do
seen
you know
my
what I mean?
spreadsheets, mate. They're awesome.
It's not the same thing, is it?
No, it's not.
And I think not what nobody's. I don't think anybody's wanting him to go like full Paul Mullins spec, doing fist pumps at the end of the game and stuff like that. I mean, I think if he did, he's got everything else in his locker to be like cult hero status. He could be the next James McLean, the next Paul Mullin. But I think there's just that little tiny step. Nobody's asking him to kiss the badge or pump his chest. Just a little bit of celebration would be nice.
But I think you're right. I think now he's doing it on purpose. He's digging his heels in on purpose because he doesn't want to be. Because I look at it this way, right? He's probably looked at Paul Mullin and seen how he's treated when he went off the boil.
Yeah.
He's probably thinking, well, you're not getting me this way. You're not roping me in with the mass adulation and cult heroism for then to be cast off in 18 months because I'm not scoring goals anymore.
But in fairness, I don't know whether the fans cast Paul Mullin out, did they? But
we still love him. She's fine.
Excuse me, but the last thing that I would just say about Windass, just so there's no kind of confusion, I think from a footballing point of view, the best compliment I can pay him is, even though I'm not sure he will win it, he should win Player of the Season. Well, I think if you I know we're going to talk about this separately, but just to kind of put a full stop on this conversation about Windass, that's the best compliment I can pay him. I
don't know how you can look past Conor Cody myself, but that's maybe that's me, to be honest. But let's get back to this game, Jamie. His goal was fantastic. Is it more the fact that Creswell's back pass was so crap, or is it just Windass just did exactly the right thing against Bazunu?
Bit of both. I mean, it was a piss poor, scuffed pass back, but you've got to give the credit to Josh Windass. He was alert to it. He was quick. He was quick off the mark to capitalise on the poor back pass, and to have the composure to slot it in. Superb goal. Just sad, not sad, but it's tough on the defender because it was a bad mistake. But shit happens, and from Josh Windass's point of view, that's where you want him to be. Ice cold and clinical, and he absolutely was. As it turned out, that was his second goal for him on the day, and capped off what was a brilliant performance because he was really good on Saturday against Stoke. I think what was interesting was the fact that there was a slight change in the formation and the position that he was playing in, that he was playing more off Smith, more as like a more of a supporting role for Smith rather than.
There was more of a change, wasn't there? Because Rathbone was playing. It was more like a centre three for me, because Rathbone was playing further back. Yeah, kind of leaving Windass and Smith up front on their own a little bit more, which I think worked. To be honest, I'd said on another podcast that I think that's what we should do. I think we should, pack up the midfield at the moment because we seem to be losing a lot in the midfield. And that's. I mean,
credit to Barkey for that, because I think one thing that we'd all kind of picked up on in recent games was how isolated the striker was, whether it was Kiefer Moore or whether it was Sam Smith. In recent games, they might as well have been playing their own game on the next field because they were that isolated. So to try and give some support to the striker, but not completely, go with two strikers, because that our system doesn't really allow for that. It was the right call, I think. And like I say, even though it wasn't the letting the handbrake off performance I was hoping for, and it as the game played out and against the opposition that we were, I think it was a missed opportunity. I think if we would have turned the screw, we could have and probably should have scored more goals.
I know you wished they scored more goals, definitely, because what you didn't see, Daz, and what the people at home didn't see, was that we got back in the car, and then it suddenly dawned on Jamie. He went, "What did Daz say? What did Daz predict?" And I went, I can't remember, mate. You'll have to look it up. So we're driving back to his house, and he's going through last week's pod, trying to get to the bit. And it was a case where he got to the bit, and you said, I think it's going to be, I'm going to say 2-0. And he went, oh, for fuck's sake, at the top of his voice, which was brilliant. Because I laughed like a drain. I laughed like a drain.
Yes, I did. And I profess already that I may have swore a little bit after last night's result as well.
So yeah, there you go. Bejuno had a shot blocked shortly after the restart. Although Stoke desperately struggled to cause Wrexham goalkeeper Danny Ward any problems at all. In fact, I don't remember him really doing anything major. It was quite an easy start for him, to be honest. Wrexham were only too happy to protect their league and enjoyed numerous prolonged spells with the ball. Sam Smith unable to stretch his head to Windas's delivery beyond Bazunu in the second half. Lamine Cisse prodded against the crossbar in the final minute for Stoke. That was the only kind of bit that Stoke really had, as Wrexham kept their first clean sheet in 6 matches. I mean, Daz. So we changed the keeper. We drop Max and bring Dom Hine back in. We shore up the midfield, and we get our first clean sheet in 6. Is that because Parky did the right thing and went, yep, we're going to change the formation and we're going to keep him out? Or was it just because Stoke were a bit shit?
I mean, I didn't see the whole game, but I can only imagine that from the bits I've seen, Stoke weren't really that good. That they weren't up for it. So as much as you can say they weren't allowed to be that good because you were shoring up the midfield, and there's a whole range of reasons why that team might not have performed as well as they wanted to. But I can't imagine how difficult it is to motivate a team who have got nothing to play for in true sense. I know we said they should have had something to play for, i.e., it's the brand Wrexham that they were going to be trying to beat, whether it's you want to call it Disney FC or whatever. It's that suddenly is your motivation. If that's all you've got, it's going to be quite hard to lift that. I would have thought so. I think the performances were poor. I think Wrexham absolutely gave them no room to be able to be whatever their tactic was meant to be. Or so I think it's classically a bit of both. But I did like it did seem that formation did give you a really robust, really confident platform. I mean, you weren't as prolific. I mean, there have been other games where you've had more shots and more shots on target and all of those kind of things. I was amazed that, you look at the stats. It was like, say, no shots on target by them, but from 6. But you only had 9 or something. So I think so you're marginally better in terms of that attacking play. But 4 out of 9, so almost 50% are on target. And from those 4, you score 2. So it's a really good return. So it's a little bit more clinical than the Wrexham we've seen perhaps recently. Is that Windows? Is that all those changes contribute to it? I don't know, but I think there was enough changes there, like you say, returning to your more reliable back 2 defenders and certainly central defenders. I do think the Danny Ward factor has got to be huge. And as you keep saying, Windows up front, you will get goals. You will get goals.
Just not very, very happy, smiley goals. Jamie, so Stoke Kairas doing its thing. We needed a win after the 2 poor performances versus Birmingham and versus Southampton. We got that, but as you say, not massively convincing. You've really felt that against a team like Stoke, you probably could have put the boot to the throat a bit more. Is that the disappointment? Because I felt a little bit of disappointment in the end, which is ridiculous when you think we won 2-0 and we'd managed to keep them till they didn't have a single shot on target. And yet I felt a certain amount of disappointment when I'm thinking we could have made the signature statement here by really nailing 3 or 4 goals past this very poor mid-table side.
And that's the reason why you were disappointed. Before the game, nobody expected a dominant, heavy scoreline performance from us. We just wanted to and felt confident we could win the game. what we didn't expect was to see the Stoke team that we saw, and that's why you feel disappointed, because having watched the game, they were absolutely, if we would have wanted to, they were absolutely there, primed to concede more goals. So that's, to me, that's why you felt disappointed. I wouldn't say I necessarily felt disappointed, because the key to it was winning, wasn't it? That was the most important thing. Or, I mean, we talked about it last week. At this stage of the season, it's just about winning rather than the performance. It was, it was professional. Just to go back to your question you asked Daz a minute ago, I think we've got to be careful. I know we've kept 2 clean sheets now in the last 2 games. Obviously, I know we're going to talk about Oxford in a minute. I think the defence against Oxford earned their money more than they did on Saturday against Stoke.
Definitely.
I really, with the greatest respect, I don't think you can gauge too much about Danny Ward's performances from either of these 2 games. Granted, the things you already alluded to briefly that you've mentioned that you're going to talk about more, his communication, his distribution is definitely somewhere where he's got, you can see he's got that experience over Arthur. But let's be honest, he's had we saved 1 shot in 2 games, which was against Oxford last night.
Yep.
So yeah, look, at the end of the day, the 2-0, the nil was important after the amount of goals we've shipped recently. And winning the game was the most important thing. I just wish they would have, either scored a 3rd or conceded 1 or something, just as it wasn't 2-0. But there you go.
Well, 2 hours later, and Cymru Women were in Albania to play Albania Women in the next tie towards hopeful World Cup qualification. Daz, 2 changes from the 4-0 win a few days before. Rachel Rowe and Hayley Ladd coming in for Elise Hughes and Carrie Jones. Again, I think this is quite good. I felt when I looked at this, because I'm thinking, yeah, we're now getting a real good, core of players where we're not making huge amounts of change. I know it's always very, very difficult, isn't it, when you're playing the same team just a few days later. You don't want to make too many changes, but I thought bringing Rachel Rowe in particularly, because she's an absolute hard nose. Yeah, I thought that's a good substitution to make, a good change to make.
Yeah, maybe the performance didn't quite marry up to that expectation, but when you read it, you think, yes, I can see what the changes are for, where that would enhance, or where that adaptation would really sort of develop. We know what Rachel Rowe can do. She's got an engine on her. She just runs and runs and runs. She's absolutely gritty. She's, and the physicality that we learned from the first leg, there was a certain, I must admit, I think I was really disappointed by the Albania in terms of it was all about whinging. It was all about complaining. It was all about feeling by. I felt there was an opportunity to get in their face and really sort of get, really, but yeah, I'm in the wound a little bit. So I thought somebody like Rachel Rowe coming in would do that. But yeah, you've got a sort of a familiarity to it, but I think it's healthy for the squad in terms of squad depth, that fringe players, and this is a Bellamy trait as well, where the fringe players or bench warmers, whatever, closers, as they're getting called now these days, they need to be rewarded with starts every now and again. So I do think it is actually quite healthy to have an element of rotation, but you don't want wholesale. You don't want to be completely disruptive and start from scratch. So I think this is good, because if anybody then drops out, or anybody needs to step in as a substitute, last minute call up, you've got that familiarity embedded in. So I think this is a good sign to start off with. And of course, photograph there of Sophie Ingle, who's 150th cap. What an ambassador for the game. A huge achievement. I know in the women's game there are plenty of players internationally. I think Wilkinson herself, has got numbers, serious numbers. But it's not something we're familiar with, and so to be, this number of performances and good performances, what an achievement.
And this is the time to enjoy players like Sophie, because as we've seen this week, Jess Fishlock has announced now she's going to retire at the end of this season from football completely. So we're not going to see these players for much longer. So I think watch them now while you can, and take in the fantastic game that they play, because when they're gone, we will miss them. That's for sure. Well, Cymru kept their Women's World Cup qualifying bid on track, albeit fairly unconvincing fashion. But as Daz just intimated to, that was not helped by Albania's constant whining, whinging, and trying to get in the referee's ear on a regular basis. I felt that that's the only way they felt they could get something was through a penalty or free kicks that gave them obvious advantages. Rhian Roberts' goal, though, secured the scrappy 1-0 win. Roberts bundled in from Lily Woodham's cross, and the goal stood. Despite Albanian protests amid suggestions, the ball came off the defender's arm. I mean, I've looked at it. Doesn't look like it came off her arm to me. I just figured they were having a whine.
Yeah, it was a hopeful. They knew they. I mean, the goalkeeper is nowhere near it. I'm going straight in there. Goalkeeper, shocking.
No messing about this week.
Yeah. I'm not waiting for the invitation to have my membership of the union vote. I'm going straight in there and saying she was nowhere near it. I mean, to be honest, her own player gets in the way as well, so it doesn't make it any easier. So so if she deals with that, then it's a different situation. But no, it's scrappy. But fair play though. That's she's just doubled her goal tally in what is it, 80 odd appearances. She's had 2 goals, and now she's up to 4. I mean, you gotta love it. Well done, Robert. I just think she's earned it. When you say she's done what, 86, 88 appearances, and you just think like that's another choice words here, veteran, but a senior player with so much experience, and for her to get that kind of reward, I do think it does say something about the stability that we're beginning to show, or some sort of, not even predictability, but we've talked about set pieces being our Achilles heel, and that's another game in a row now where maybe I'm bigging this up because the opponents are not that much of a challenge and stuff, but it was another goal that led from a set piece that didn't work the first time around, but was resent in, and they were alert to what was available. So I do think there's something quite positive about that, and I do think that's now 2 games in a row where we've seen that improvement. And whether or not Roberts is encouraged to go up and be, because it's a good header of the ball, quite, she's a bit taller than some of the other players, and it's fine if you've got a Hannah Kane and all these who are fast and who can counter attack. But actually, as when the ball's getting crossed in, you do need your Sophie Ingles, you do need your Rhiannon Roberts. They are impressive athletes who are larger and taller, and therefore will give you another a dynamic, another edge in terms of an attacking force. So I just think there seemed to be a bit more structure and use of those set pieces. So I hope that's something positive to look at, because when we're playing some better quality, we want to make sure that we're holding our own defending those kind of set pieces, because that's been our Achilles heel.
And another clean sheet, second clean sheet as well, so that's great. Even after taking the lead, though, Rhian Wilkinson's side never had the sort of control that we enjoyed during Tuesday's comfortable win over the Albanians in Wrexham. There were scares for Cymru, most notable when Zaka rattled the bar after the break, but they held on to ensure that Sophie Ingles celebrated her 150th cap with a victory. Cymru now have 10 points from 4 Group B1 games, although they trail the leaders of the group, Czech Republic, on goal difference after they beat Montenegro 4-1. I mean, Daz, it's all heading, isn't it, towards that final Czech Republic game at home, last game in the campaign, because we're going to play Montenegro next, where you'd like to hope that we're going to put a cricket score on them, and you'd like maybe the Albanians will do a bit of a job and hold them up a little bit. But it's heading, isn't it, towards basically the 2 best teams in the league. I mean, the good thing is we're guaranteed now to get a playoff place, because 3 out of 4 get a playoff place, and we can't be 4th. So we're guaranteed, but we need to get top of the group to get a more favourable line through the draw.
Yeah,
but it's heading towards Czech Republic, isn't it?
We knew that would be the case. I mean, I think whether or not we'll rue the missed opportunities to put a few more on there for the goal difference. We knew that goal difference could come into it because it just gives you the option then of a draw on that last day being a potential option for getting through. It doesn't put all the pressure on a must-win game. Whereas if we go in and the Czechs have got a much better goal difference because of the fact that they have been putting cricket scores together, then will we regret that? And this was a game where I thought we could have or should have done that. I mean, yes, they were a really horrible team to play against, but we were by far the strongest. I know we had scares, but there was the dominance is there. You can see it in the 75% possession, 74, whatever. You've seen it there in terms of attacks and moments on the goal, but at least they were better than the first leg. I mean, their visit to Cardiff, to Wrexham, sorry, it was at least a bit more of a, there was a bit more fight to it, but it was still layered with trying to play some of the dark arts, but just not very good at it. And then trying to get into the ear of the ref, and then the ref not having any of it either. So we should have had more. It's a shame Sophie's goal didn't stand. I mean, to celebrate our 150th cap,
would have been nice.
Would have been nice. Totally deserved it, and not entirely sure about the offside, but because it was close. So that's a shame. But we should have scored more, and I do think we may come to rue that situation. But no, you're right. It's going to come down to that the final game. We've got the home advantage, so we've got to make sure we make the most of that. But we always knew it would be. But it's hotting up. But we can't slip up though. That's the thing. That only becomes true if we do actually perform.
Yeah, I mean, we're going out to Montenegro. That's not going to be a fun place to go to because I've seen the stadium they've chosen today, and it looks like it's back from the 1980s behind the Iron Curtain. Yeah. And this pitch, apparently there were problems with this pitch. So goodness knows what Montenegro is going to be like. But I've kept Jamie out of this because Jamie was sitting in the car with me while this game was on. So I'm not sure how much of it he actually watched or whether he watched.
Absolutely fuck all.
That's fine. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. But I do want to ask, I do want to get your opinion with regards to Cymru did what they needed to do. And that's the most important thing. Maybe the performance wasn't great compared to Tuesday, but surely the most important bit is 3 points on the board.
Absolutely, I think it's become our new catchphrase, isn't it? Is that it's the result, not the performance. I think going away from home is always that little bit of jeopardy. From what I understand, I think the temperature was quite high over there, so that's always going to have an impact on kind of performance levels and things like that. But look, it doesn't matter. It was a win. It was the 3 points. It was a clean sheet, and that's the most important thing. I think ticking off the 2 games against them and two wins is you can't really want for more than that. Yes, I'm sure they would have wanted to put in a better performance and scored a few more goals. But it doesn't really matter too much in the grand scale of things.
So last night we all travelled to the city of spires and dead bodies in the canal. If you're Inspector Morse, yes, we went down to the Kassam Stadium to take on Oxford United in the third but last league game this season. Let's look at the lineup first, Jim. Only one change from the win over Stoke. Ryan Longman in for Issa Kabore. So first of all, Longman for Kabore. That was a surprise. Some did predict it, and I thought, no. I know some people have said Kabore isn't really doing what we expected him to do. We feel he could do more. But I was quite shocked to see Longman. However, he did go off. He hobbled off. So it's possible that we'll never see this again, or we won't see this again for a while. Were you surprised by Longman instead of Kabore?
A little, working on the assumption that Kabore, is fully fit. I think, like you just said, I don't think we've seen the best of him. Well, generally, but I think he blows very hot and cold. But without doubt, he is still the best option we've got currently available to us on that right side. No disrespect to Ryan Longman, he's had some good moments in a Wrexham shirt, but I think as this season's gone on and the few appearances that he's made, you can kind of see why Hull let him go. The January transfer window before the last one, because that was last season when they were struggling at the bottom of the league and they, were prepared to let him go. So you can kind of see why now. I'm not quite sure he's really cut out for the top end of the Championship. So I agree. I was a little bit surprised. Like I say, working on the basis that there was no unknown injuries that we didn't know about.
And the other thing, and this is where I want to get back to Arthur. Danny Ward in again for a second game with 3 games left to go. Daz, I'll ask you first. That for me was damning. If you'd have dropped Danny Ward in for one game and then dropped Arthur in for the next game, highly unusual, because why would you want that amount of disruption unless there was an injury? But if you're dropping a keeper who's played for the last 6 or 7 months with 4 games left to go, and you bring in your, as you rightly said earlier, your number 1 keeper who's now fit for 2 games. Also, there's the talk this week that Arthur is in the last year of his contract, and there are no rumours whatsoever about contract negotiations or signing a new contract. Is this kind of, you're thinking, well, maybe Arthur isn't the future and Danny is?
So he's got one more to go after the end of this season. So next year would be his last one.
Yes.
And then he'd leave for free. Okay.
Yes. Because he's worth money, obviously, at the moment.
Yeah.
But if we get into his final year of the contract, his value for us, for Wrexham, goes down exponentially, because he can then do pre-contract negotiations and it becomes very sticky, doesn't it?
I mean, you need to ask me this question in a couple of weeks' time, because I don't think Arthur's a Premier League goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a decent Championship? Probably. Danny Ward, better Championship. Could be a Premier still. So I don't know. There's layers to this, really. I think if you've made the change, like to bring Danny Ward in last game, then he had to be committed. He had to be prepared to go the rest of the season with Danny Ward. That's a decision made. That's a choice. And if that's a case of, also, does he need to see Danny Ward play more? Because he needs to know what he's got ready for next year. What does he?
Playoffs.
Or playoffs, maybe. Ooh, look at you, optimism.
Hey.
But no, I think there's some reality there that you just think, like, actually, does he know what he's got? I think we all know what he's got in Danny Ward, and he probably saw that enough in pre-season to give him the start. We saw that in the first 4 or 5 games, and since he's been back, I mean, like Jamie said, he hasn't been tested by the sounds of things, but when he was, he met that test. I mean, I think that is the one harsh thing about the Stoke game. In hindsight, is a shame that it wasn't Arthur in goal, because if it was that poor, and that it could have been the game that gave Arthur the boost and the confidence that he could have done with. It wasn't a cagey Birmingham or a sort of tense game. But I just think he's committed. He's made the decision, and it's good from a management point of view that no position is safe, no position is automatic. Windus has been dropped, Arthur's been dropped. Now, whether or not some of the others have been dropped because it's fitness and fatigue, you've been talking about the long season, but this one fit, pretty much is best player fit gets the role. So I'm not surprised, because I say he is a good goalkeeper. We know Danny was a good goalkeeper, so I can't fault it. And at the moment, the clean sheets suggest it's been a wise choice.
I mean, Jamie, I'm having a proper sliding doors moment, because if Danny Ward hadn't got injured in Millwall, he probably would have stayed as number 1 keeper. We know that Arthur has made some key saves in key games this season where he's kept the ball out. When you're thinking, well, if Danny Ward had been in, would he have kept the ball? I mean, again, we'll never know. But are we only having this conversation because Ward got injured in early on? And actually, the universe is now setting itself right by saying, well, no, Danny Ward, out of the 3 goalkeepers that Wrexham have, is the best goalkeeper and therefore should be in that starting position.
Is he the best goalkeeper?
So I'm asking you the questions. I'm not.
Yeah. No. He's no, and that's kind of a rhetorical question. You just said, the best goalkeeper. Is he the best goalkeeper? Is he the best goalkeeper of the 2 of them? He's the more experienced goalkeeper.
He is.
He is a.
So I'll ask you the question then. How do you define the best goalkeeper? Is the best goalkeeper a shot stopper or a somebody who can give proper service, somebody who can command the back row, somebody who can be general nuisance in the box, making sure defenders don't? I mean, what is the best goalkeeper?
I think the conversation about who's the best goalkeeper between Arthur and Danny Ward is a separate topic for another day. I think this comes back down to the fact that for me personally, I think it was harsh to drop Arthur. That's just my personal opinion. That being said, everything you've said to this point, it makes sense in that obviously, like Parky decided at the beginning of the season, Danny Ward was going to be his number 1. And like you said, if he hadn't have got injured against Millwall, and would have played without getting that injury, then he maybe would have been our number 1 all season. He maybe would have dropped Clanger and Arthur would have come in for him partway through the season. We're never going to know, are we? But I suppose I was surprised that Arthur was dropped, given the season that he's had personally. But fundamentally, Parky makes the decisions, and he, for whatever reason, thinks that Danny Ward is the better option of the 2 of them, and so therefore, as I haven't really got an issue. I haven't got an issue with Danny Ward because we had this conversation at the start of the season. I've got no issues with him being between the sticks for Wrexham. Like I say, he's an international goalkeeper, for God's sake, with crazy amount of experience. My surprise was the fact that Arthur was dropped. I thought unfairly dropped. But I think, I think the most important thing, or the most significant thing to come out of this whole kind of exercise with Arthur and Danny Ward in the last couple of games is a word you've just used there, damning. I think that, to me, is quite an apt word to use, because I think this tells me that Parky doesn't see Arthur staying at the club long term. I think we all kind of thought that when we signed him permanently after he'd been on loan to us, I think we all kind of thought, right, we've got a goalkeeper here that can be with us for the next 10 years. He can develop with us. He could probably go to the very top with us. And I have to be honest, I still believe that is the case. He's young enough. I know there are parts of his game that are lacking, but I think he's still very, very young for a goalkeeper and has got a lot to learn. And I am confident he can develop into a top flight goalkeeper. But I think the fact that Parky's chosen to go back to Danny Ward at this stage of the season is like you said, that damning. I think the fact that Arthur's entering the last year of his contract, and as you've said, to our knowledge, there's no talks ongoing about a new deal. I think one of the things on the shopping list in the summer will be a new goalkeeper. I really do. I think that's what this is telling me, because I don't think Arthur won't want to be a number 2. I think he'll think he's better than a number 2. And again, if we were going to keep Danny Ward and he was going to be our number 1 for next season, again, I wouldn't be against that. But he's not a long-term option, is he? No. I don't think.
No.
So I believe that we might, the conversations internally will be probably looking at a goalkeeper in the summer, which is a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest with you. But that's kind of how this all feels.
Not Leicester's goalkeeper, though, not after the howl he did last night. Well, this was pretty much a game exactly what you would expect. Oxford are fighting for their life, although currently, I believe Blackburn are in the lead, and if they win, Oxford are down anyway after last night's result. Oxford started strongly as you'd expect. Pert Harris headed straight at Danny Wood on 5 minutes from a deep cross. Very little else from note. I mean, the thing was disappointing for me, Jim, was Wrexham we've said a lot, take the handbrake off. Didn't feel we took the handbrake off last night. Many times. It was continually going across the back. Would maybe go to the wingers when they were in deep positions, but they would very rarely make that slip pass to go forward or that pass inside. It would reach a dead end and then it would go back. Very, very cautious, as we've seen a lot this season. Obviously, we won, but only just with a 1-0. Is that the right thing to be doing, or do we need to start taking the handbrake off?
I think we should know by this point now that us thinking about taking the handbrake off is irrelevant, because it's not Parky's way, is it? And who are we to question whether it's the right approach? This keeping it tight, trying to sneak a goal or two, has served him incredibly well in the last few years and throughout his career. So I don't think it's fair of us or anyone else really to question whether that's the right approach, particularly at this point of the season. Would I like to see us go a little bit more aggressive and attacking at teams' court? Yes, I would, because I prefer to watch that type of football. But last two games, 2 victories, 2 clean sheets, 2 vital wins. You can't turn your nose up at that. This game was. It was a very tight game. I think exactly like you said. I think we got what we expected from Oxford, which was a tough game. They did have some good chances. They did create some good chances. I think the 2 things from our perspective which were most pleasing was, one, there were times during the game where I thought we were very, very efficient and very good at controlling the ball when we needed to. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying about the kind of side passing at times and the backwards passing at times. I can understand where you're coming from, and sometimes it can be frustrating in the heat of the moment, but I also think at times that was a deliberate ploy to control the game and keep the ball, and I think they did that very well at times. The likes of Matty James being back in there massively helps with that, because he is somebody that can pull the strings of a game, particularly when you're playing against an opposition like, without being rude, Oxford, who are obviously where they are in the league.
There's a reason why they are where they are. They're very, very good at set pieces, but they're not really good at anything else. And surprise, Mark Harris came on later on and did nothing, Daz. Nothing at all.
Yeah. But the other thing as well, which I thought we should give credit for, which was the defensive display. Again, coming back to kind of what we spoke about with the changes for the Stoke game, with Dan Scarr coming back into the middle, obviously Dom Heim now going out to the right and Callum Doyle on the left. Saturday they weren't tested really. Stoke didn't test them at all, whereas last night against Oxford, Oxford really did test the defence, and I think they were very, very resolute and they really stood up to it. There were some incredible blocks, by all by all 3 of them, and by the wing backs as well. Dom Heim in particular, I thought was very good last night. But the back 3 as a unit were spot on, and I think that maybe plays into why Parky has made the decision of taking Max out of the team, bringing Scarr back into the team, and maybe even why he's brought Danny Ward back in and taken Arthur out. I think Danny Ward did make a reasonably okay save in this game. There was one shot towards the end of the game, which was an easy save, and a save you'd absolutely expect him to make, but he still had to make it. I think what you saw a bit more in this game than you did against Stoke with regard to Danny Ward is a little bit more of that distribution. He's very good with his feet. He's a lot better with his feet than Arthur is, and that you can't deny that. Yeah. And I think is and you alluded to it a little bit before, and you can probably echo it a bit more now, but I think his communication and his authority over the defence again is significantly better than Arthur's, and I think those are probably two big reasons why he's been brought back into the team. But look, it was a for me it was a very professional performance. Yep. I think there were times where we did ride our luck a little bit, but I think we never. I don't think there was never a stage of the game where I felt we were really at risk. Oxford did have some spells in the game where they were, had more of the ball.
I'd question that. I think the last 10 minutes, I think we were really at risk. It was only because, as you say, the defence absolutely stood up and put in a superb performance, because they realised with 10 minutes to go that this was it. If they didn't score a goal, at least get a draw, this was it. And they threw everything at us, absolutely everything. I mean, they had a call for a penalty, which was never a penalty in a million years, because apparently they were moaning about shirt pulling. But I would say the last 10 minutes for me, there was definite jeopardy there, where we have seen goals go in because the defence have not maybe been as switched on as they need to be. But not last night. You're absolutely right. They were spot on. Daz, not sure if you've seen the goal. I think this was, for me, the best passage of play that Wrexham had all game. 40 minutes in, George Thomason, Smith brought down the long ball, squared it brilliant to Windass, drilled it low, 20-yard shot into the bottom corner. Very, very bread and butter, nothing fancy, but just a well-executed goal.
Yeah, no, I mean it is. I mean, it's Smith, isn't it? Who brings it down and it plays it with a really lovely weighted sort of pass to the side. You do have to question Oxford's defence. There's like 5 shirts around him and the ball at that time, and even when Windass is striking it, there's plenty of shirts, and they should be closing that down. Do I give the goalkeeper some? I'm just trying to get my membership back in. Do I give him some credit because there's a lot of shirts in the way that he sees it late? Because it is relatively close to him, and I wouldn't say it's a blasted with huge venom. It's just a really well taken, well placed shot. But that's the sign of a striker in form, striker with confidence. And I think on any other day he sees that earlier and he saves it. But that's the joy of that's the like you said, a good passage of play. So Smith has drawn those players towards him, and there's a little bit of space that he plays the ball into, but Windass does the rest, and he's got to get it through those shirts. So I think it's a really good clinical goal, and it kind of felt it had a little bit of I deserve to be the number one striker in this team sort of feel about it. I think the swagger about it afterwards felt a little bit like that. And there have probably been other moments in the game where others, Smith could have done, Kiefer could have done, but it's Windass at the moment who's getting the, he's got his shooting boots on, as they say.
Well, I think that's 6 in 5. I think that is now which is incredible. So Wrexham finished the week thanks to Leicester doing as a parting gift by holding Hull to a draw, and they were in the lead as well, which we were getting the away end was getting very, very excited when it was Leicester 2, Hull 1, but Hull managed to pull one back and it was 2-2. They still did us a favour, which means that Wrexham finished the week 6th in the last playoff spots, but only on goal difference. We got a +2 goal difference over Hull City. Derby lost, so we pushed that a little bit further out to 4 points. But sounds of it, Middlesbrough are winning tonight, so they're going to be out of reach. So it is going to be, Jamie, between us and Hull. I think Derby have now blown it, being 4 points away with 2 games to go. This pod today is entitled 2 words. Can we?
Well, you asked the question last week.
I mean,
you answered it, Daz. You were, of the 3 of us, you were the far most positive, as some people have said. But I'm asking the pessimist down below me here, who like me has danced to this tune before.
No. I wouldn't say this. Well, not in this context. In this season, I wouldn't say I've been pessimistic. Ultimately last week I went for a win against Stoke. I just thought we would maybe score score one more, and I thought they would offer more than they did. So still the result was correct. I just think the Oxford one, I just felt that was a banana skin waiting to happen. And as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, we haven't really been playing particularly well, if we're being brutally honest, recently or in the last few games. And let's be honest about it. It's not like we've played fantastic in our last two games, and we've won them, but we've not, it's not been blistering performances. So, can we? I mean, look, we're back in. We're there, aren't we? We're back in that sixth spot.
It's if we can win the next two games, we're in the playoffs. Nobody can stop us. Well, yes.
I think obviously. I mean, the Championship, you can see, can't you, why it's considered one of the best leagues in the world, because it's been like unbelievable this season, and it's going to go right to the wire. I know Coventry have now not only got promoted, but they won the league last night. So, like I said before, congratulations to them. As we're speaking now, Ipswich have actually gone and scored a second against Charlton, so they're back up into second still with a game in hand. Charlton now, Blackburn are beating Sheffield United, so they're safe, I think, now. So Charlton really are the I think technically,
which is good for us because they play Hull.
Yeah. So I mean, Hull have been on a pretty sticky run of form recently, so since they beat us. So they're struggling a little bit, like you say. I think Derby now are probably out of it. The only downside is the two games we've got left, and that's what is a bit of a problem, because you look at those two games and literally you think to yourself, I mean, this game coming up at the weekend, and which I know we'll talk about in a minute, but it's like you look at it and you think, we're playing Coventry, who are now not only promoted, but they've now won the league. They'll be on the beach. It's we could win that game, and we could win the game, but equally it's their last home game of the season. They're going to be getting presented with the trophy. They are not going to want to lose that game, so that's a tough one. The daft thing is that I think we could afford to lose on Sunday and still have a shout, and that's when you start thinking to yourself, well, maybe then last game of the season at home to Middlesbrough. Well, so yeah. So at this stage, why not? Why not? I think there is a strong possibility we can grab hold of that six, even despite the two fixtures we've got remaining. Purely on the basis that Hull are struggling to perform, and they've got a tough game coming up. Who have they got in the last game of the season?
Norwich, Hull.
So
Norwich are doing quite well. If they'd have had another month, probably Norwich would have got into the playoffs, because they're on quite a positive curve at the moment.
Yeah,
I think the only advantage is Hull are at home. I think against Norwich. Although having said that, they don't play well at home.
No.
Hull. So
I think, like I said to you last week, after the two defeats to Southampton and Birmingham, I said, we have to keep believing. And now, a week later, after two victories, we have to keep believing. As much as the next two games are not easy, we have to. I
said last week we could be sitting here in 7 days where we are above Hull, and hey presto, here we are. Yes, all right. Maybe not as convinced as I would like it to have been, because I would have liked. I honestly thought Leicester would beat Hull last night, because I felt that they would reach a point of no return and they would actually pull a result out. But it just shows how rubbish they've been this season, because they couldn't keep him out. But yeah, still have to play for. Amazing.
And now it's time for the away day footy scran review.
So here we are, Kazam Stadium, Oxford United, third to last game of the season. And of course, that must mean an away day footy review. And tonight we've got a steak and ale pie, homemade, apparently, by the fair fingers of Oxford. So let's give it a try I'll tell you how it is. Ooh. Well, what a game that was. 1-0. I think our plan was to try and bore the opposition to death. Nearly worked. We got the win. That's the most important thing. But never mind the win. I can hear you say, what about the away day footy scran review? Well, steak and ale pie. You know, I wasn't very hopeful, and yet it was really good. The pastry was lovely, flaky, but not too flaky. The inside, the gravy was really meaty. Great veg, great meat. £5.40, quite expensive for a pie, but 8 out of 10 friars, I think, for that one. 8 out of 10 friars. Well done, Oxford. I'm sure they'll be the best-selling pies in League One. Up the town! Daz, you're...
40 for a pie?
Now, hang on a second. Daz, you are a pie connoisseur. I know this for a fact. Right?
Strong words.
I tell you something. I was eating that pie and I was thinking of you, because I was thinking you would definitely enjoy this pie, because it was you probably didn't get the scale, but it was a big pie. It wasn't like a
I think it looked pretty. Yeah, I think it was sizable. I
hope nobody's watching this without sound, because all they would have just seen you doing is going.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not a processed one. So remember that minging salt and pepper pie we had at Blackburn.
Oh.
As far away from that as you could possibly get, because it felt like it tasted and felt like it was homemade.
Yeah,
and I think that's what the thing.
And I don't think 540 is that much, because considering what I've seen at Cardiff City and some of the other grounds, you know, you pay a lot for pretty much not much. And that looked like a sizable offering, and if it's homemade or certainly not as processed, that's got to be brilliant. So
I also had a sausage roll. I didn't put that on and that was nice too. I'm a fat bastard.
I was about to say it can't be that good if it's not that filling, but I forget the measure that we're using here is you. Yeah.
So let's look at the footy scran table. Oxford, with 8 out of 10 friars, put themselves in third. That's as high up a table as they're going to get this season, let's be honest. Swansea still at the top with 9, and Ipswich with 9 for Lukey's big boy. All the way down at the bottom, Wobbly Stadium and their real dog, Hot Dog. One more to go, Coventry on Sunday. I'll be there at Coventry on Sunday. So we'll see if Coventry do manage to beat the 9. Otherwise, we're going to have to award this year's footy scran award. Playoffs. What, against Swansea versus Ipswich? Well, maybe the three of us will have a
What if we make it to the playoffs?
No, it's just I'm not doing that. I'm gonna be too sick to eat if we're in the playoffs.
You can't give it to Swansea.
No, what I'll say is because they're Jacks.
Because they're Jack fuckers.
If we've still got some at the top of the same, the three of us will have a debate on who we think should get it. Based on my review,
based on 2 of the 3 of us not having tried the food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The only way we could do this is if we do an away trip to Swansea and Ipswich, just the 3 of us.
Well, you know, I wish I could say that the coffers would stretch to that, but seeing as there's nothing in them, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But anyway, well done, Oxford. Steak and ale pie, definitely recommend. If you're in League One next season, and I'm looking at you, Leicester fans, if you find where Oxford is. Because you're not going to be able to find where everywhere else is. Bromley. Go and have one of those pies. Very, very nice. Very good. Now on the Eat My Chips podcast, it's time for today's newspaper, tomorrow's chip paper, where we catch up on Cymru and Wrexham football news. First up, Wrexham Women's side have had their end-of-year awards for the season at Carden Park, with the best and the brightest being celebrated. And there were some top awards given out. Under-19s captain Izzy Barnett. She got Under-19s Player of the Year and Players Player of the Year. Of course, Izzy is Wrexham men's player Ryan Barnett's sister. So it's good to see it's kept in the family. A goal machine that is Grace Morris got the Under-19s top goal scorer of the year. 17 goals in only 14 games, which is massively impressive. Sienna Parry got the Under-19s goal of the season for her away goal versus Carmarthen Town. And then looking at the women's senior side, no surprises here really, apart from maybe one. Faye Knox got the Young Player of the Season and the Goal of the Season for her strike versus Cardiff City at the Cardiff City Stadium, where she rattled it in from the left-hand side with an absolute super strike. And Katie Barker walked away with 4 awards. Top goal scorer of the Adran League, which is 25 goals. First ever player to hit more than 20 goals in a league season. Moment of the season was her breaking the Adran Prem goal record at home to TNS. She also got Players Player of the Season and Player of the Season. So a quad of awards for Katie Barker there. Jamie? No, actually, Daz, I'll ask you first. Any surprises there in the senior side? Faye Knox and Katie Barker pretty much walking away with everything?
Yeah, I mean, they've been, you can't deny Barker's numbers. That's the, at the end of the day, that's a clear indicator of the success that she's made of joining this team. And what I think, is impressive is that somebody like Faye Knox has come in, and that the role that she's played, that doesn't surprise me at all, because she becomes the conversations we've had, we constantly talk about her. Even the fleeting moments Jamie's watched, it's always Faye Knox that he notices. So, it's clearly a measure. It's clearly a measure that if you can impress Jamie, then you must have stood out. So I know, to be fair,
if you wake Jamie up or get him to look up from his bag of chips, you've definitely made your mark, haven't you? Jamie, I think the only thing surprising for me probably out of this was the moment of the season winner. Katie Barker got it for breaking the goals record, which is fantastic. But I think Maria Francis Jones for me in the Adran Cup final, in her debut, shoots that absolutely beautiful left-footed into the top corner to draw the game level and allow Wrexham to then move on to penalties and win it. I think for me, that was more the moment of the season. I mean, thoughts?
I agree. I think I can understand why she got it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Francis Jones in that semi-final was the one. Let's be honest. You could pick. You could pick a good number of moments from the season, can't you? That were winners. It is a bit of an odd trophy, that, isn't it? A bit of an odd award. Moment of the season.
Yeah, who chooses?
Was that one of the categories that the public voted for?
Yes, it was. Yes. So obviously the players' player, it comes from the players, but the rest of them all come from voting.
I probably fucking voted for that and can't even remember. I remember voting for Faye Knox as the young player and Katie Barker for the player of the season. So those have gone with what I voted for. But I genuinely can't fucking remember what I voted for the moment of the season. So as much as I'm saying that I don't think that was the moment of the season, I probably fucking voted for it.
Excellent, good. Well, I'm glad you're on it. And voting is now open for the 2025-26 Janeiro Adran Premier Awards. You have until 5 p.m. on Monday, 27th of April, to select your Player of the Season, your Manager of the Season, and your Young Player of the Season. Votes will be combined with an independent panel, and the winners will be announced at the FAW National Leagues Awards in association with Morgan's Consult, whoever they may be, on Saturday, the 16th of May. Jenny Sugarman is nominated Manager of the Year with Ian Derbyshire and Izzy, can't remember her second name, the Swansea manager. Faye Knox is in Young Player of the Year with Lily Billingham and Michaela Cook. And Katie Barker is in Player of the Year with arguably the other two best players, which is Lily Billingham and Chloe Chivers. So go to www.faw.cymru.com/Adran Leagues /news /Janeiro Adran Premier 2025-26 Award nominees / and the link is on there to go and cast your vote now. Obviously, this independent panel will probably mess it all up because they won't want Wrexham to win anything, because that's how South Wales thinks. Apparently. I mean, Daz, surely Jenny Sugarman got to be an absolute shoe-in for Manager of the Year.
I would say favourite. I wouldn't say shoe-in. I would say favourite, though.
She's the first manager to take a North Wales team to the championship of the Adran League.
I agree.
Ever.
Favorite. Definitely reasons for it to be favorite.
Ian Derbyshire lost to us twice and then buggered off because he was too scared. And Izzy managed to beat us in the last game where we were so drunk we couldn't even see the football. Never mind kick it.
Yeah, no, I would say favorite. I would absolutely say favorite.
Wow,
like you said, I don't know how these things will pan out, because it's not, well, like you said, it's partially voted for. And I'd like to think that you don't get too partisan with those moments, and you do tend to pick the manager that deserves it. But all it takes is the one team with the most fans to vote more. So it could be. I'm hoping
until the independent panel steps in and overrules it.
Yeah, and that's the point. That's there to try and at least stop the silly voting. But yeah, she deserves it. She's definitely our favorite, my favorite for the title. But I don't know if Derbyshire will get some sort of nod for his longevity and the fact that he's been there for so long and this is his last one. I don't know what kind of sympathy they give in those moments. If he
wins this, I'm going to go to the FAW offices and let all their tyres down, because that would be an absolute outrage.
Because they won a trophy and they knocked you out of the other one, so they
won a trophy after he'd gone. It was the new guy. It was Noah who was actually in charge on Sunday. So anyway, we know your favourite is. It's fine. Faye Knox obviously against Silly Billingham and Michaela Cook. I think that's a tricky one for me, because Billingham is very, very good and Cook is very, very good as well. Not saying Faye Knox isn't, but I think that's one that maybe she might lose out on. Thoughts?
Again, it's that online vote. I just don't trust anything like that. If you've got a genuine panel and you know who they are and all of that kind of thing, but if we can help by getting more people to vote and then help to be part of that swell, then let's go for it. But yeah, she deserves credit, and I guess her club recognition is part of that. She's been a huge impact, but whether or not she'd get it, and whether it's over the whole season makes a difference, then that might be the one thing that goes against her.
So go to the website there, vote now. You have until Monday. You can do it all the weekend, and I think you can vote more than once. I'm not saying you should. I may have slipped accidentally on the button about 25 times, but I'm just saying you may be able to. But go and vote. Go and vote. Go and vote. Go and vote. Doesn't cost you anything apart from 30 seconds of your time. Jenny totally deserves it for me. If she's not manager of the year, there is something seriously wrong with the universe. It really is. I know Faye and Katie, it's tougher because of the three of Katie, Chloe Chivers, and Lily Billingham. That is tough. That is a tough, because they are all three excellent players. They really are. So that's a tough one. But Jenny wins manager of the year hands down for me. And if she doesn't get it, there's something wrong. Speaking of something wrong, Callum Doyle was named in the EFL Championship Team of the Season, which has caused some consternation, to say the least. Not just that, but the fact there's no Ipswich players, no Southampton players, and 2 Swansea players. For Potnick, okay, leading goal scorer, you can understand that. Yeah. Jamie, Callum Doyle in the team of the season? Has he been our best player? Is the question. Because you would say our best player should be in the team of the season. Although obviously I know that's positions, and
I was going to say you can't really say it like that, can you? Because if you've got 20 teams who their best player has been their number 10, then you're just going to end up with a Brazilian football team.
Yeah.
I think I'm glad he's I'm glad he's in there. We spoke a bit about Callum Doyle. For me, he's definitely in the conversation for our player of the season. And until a few weeks ago, he probably would have got my vote, because I've been really, really impressed with him since he got back in the team after that sending off against Oxford at home. I think he's been phenomenal, and I'm so excited about the future with Callum Doyle. But like I explained earlier on, I think now I've sort of stopped and thought about it, and particularly taken into account recent weeks as well, I think Josh Windass should be our player of the season. I think it's between him, Thomason, and Hyam, if I'm being honest, with one of those three. But it's difficult, isn't it, it's difficult to comment on this team of the season and the selection of it, because as much as I've watched Coventry, obviously once, because we played them once, and I watched them again on Sunday, and I watched a couple of their other games, and I watched a few other Championship games. I don't watch every Championship game every week, so it's very, very difficult for me as a fan of Wrexham, or Fred as a fan of Millwall, to say who should be in the league team of the season. You rely on, I mean, Christ, who is it that's even put this together?
It's independent panel.
Yeah, what, made up of Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder?
Well,
It's
no,
like,
I mean the four Coventry players make sense. The Middlesbrough player makes sense because at the time they probably voted they were still one of the top teams at that point. But Swansea, the two Swansea players, I mean, it's you can understand Vopotnik being in there because I think he is still the league's top scorer, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He is.
So you can understand that, but like I say, I think it's quite difficult to put together a team of the season because I haven't got a good kind of overview on each player for every team in the league.
They made a mistake there. They haven't left the space for Connor Cody. What's going on?
Yeah, but you can understand why there's some fume. How you can, the fact there's no Ipswich player in there, there's no Southampton player in there, there's no Sheffield Wednesday player in there. It's a little bit, it's all a bit of a nonsense in it. But I suppose for these players that have made the team, then I suppose it's nice for them, isn't it? It's some sort of recognition by somebody to be in a team of the season. And ultimately, if it's boiled a bit of piss up and down the country because a Wrexham players got in there, then it's been worth it.
Very, very true. Championship clubs have this week turned down the chance to introduce a version of the video assistant referee system for next season.
Thank fuck.
Football video support, a variation of VAR, which needs fewer resources and gives each coach 2 reviews per game, could have been brought in from August. The PGMO gave a presentation at the EFL's annual meeting last month. The EFL subsequently canvassed feedback, but it was clear that clubs strongly or against any kind of video review system in the Championship. BBC Sports understands the idea is closed for the foreseeable future, and the idea is unlikely to be resurrected by the clubs in a year's time. Goal line technology will continue to be used in the second tier, while it will be a cost-based analysis before a vote in June to see if they can extend it to League One. In recent months, several managers in the Championship have called for VAR to be introduced, but clubs show no appetite to move forward with the idea, fearful of the impact on the game for supporters as well as the cost of introducing it. VAR is used in the second divisions in Spain, Italy, and Germany. It was due to be added to League Two in France until the collapse of the TV rights deal saw it scrapped on financial grounds. I'll get your take in a second, Jamie, but I think we already know what it is. Daz, as I've just said, lots of other leagues around Europe at our level play VAR. We saw when Wrexham played against Chelsea that, for me, and I know this is just me, I felt that we didn't play VAR very well. I think Chelsea did because they're used to it. You're getting a 2-tier system for me. So is not having any kind of VAR at the Championship level a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a bad thing at this level because Championship now is one of the toughest leagues in the world. As we keep saying, it's each game is competitive. There's a lot of decisions that are very tight, and there are disputes, and you guys have, been part of that discussion. I've been part of that discussion. I just think that there's at this stage of proceedings where the money is so crucial. You've got clubs like, the ones that are going down are all going down because they've probably been mismanaged out of the league, but in terms of Leicester and Sheffield and stuff like that. But normally, for a team to have lost out because decisions have gone against them, that's a really, really big responsibility on one guy in the middle of the park in black. And I just think a little bit of backup here and there is no bad thing, Now, goal line technology, that's one. We know that works, and it has enhanced the game. So I think there are versions of technology that could be beneficial. I like the idea of a game match official, so that but unlike I guess it's a bit like a tennis call, isn't it? Where you think the ball's gone out, you think there's a misjudgment, and you call it out. But it's easier to make that call from being right next to the ball bouncing and going out of court than it is to be a manager pitch side trying to keep an eye on it. You can't see from there whether or not it's gone over the line. You can't see whether, sometimes you're the furthest one from the pitch. I wondered if it'll start meaning that they do what rugby do, which is they end up putting their coaches up into the gods, and they have these suites where they have digital technology and they're all in communications with the bench. But will it need them to have this view? So I can see how some of it's confusing, but I don't know enough of what this detail was. I didn't follow it. But I do think decisions need to be right, and there have been plenty of decisions that have been wrong. Can it be quicker? Yes, I would love that for the Prem as well. We've seen it work better in some of the European games. We've seen it work better in World Cups. It has been better this year. The automatic, the semi-automatic version of the offside. But I do think when it comes to red cards, game-changing moments like that, I do welcome it when it comes to that, because I think sometimes it really does make sure that players are protected in those horrible moments as well. I think if players know that nobody's keeping an eye on them and they can have one, and the shirt pulling. I mean, we've talked about shirt pulling, the number of times that have been fouls where you think they're pulling, they're pushing and stuff like that. I just think you need to use this technology properly and really clamp down on it. And then if you're being watched, you stop doing you only have to look at Haaland's shirt at the weekend. As much as I didn't want Gabriel to go off as well for that rubbish headbutt, you cannot do that. That's just not allowed. And I do think there's moments where it is used incorrectly, but I do think that a level of backup is needed.
Let's flip that mattress over. Jamie, technology is there. Technology can help, as Daz said. But is this the technology to put in? Because it is down to personal interpretation at the end of the day. And we have seen, some calls which have been made on VAR where you're thinking, well, that person has judged that to be a handball. That person has judged that. Offside, I think, is easier. Although, again, as we saw it in our FA Cup, Thomason was a toe offside. Still offside. Is that a right use of the technology? Or actually, this is a good thing, because this is back to football as we are used to it. Because lots of fans say the problem with VAR is you score a goal and you celebrate, and then you have to wait because you're thinking, well, is it a goal or is it not? So you interrupt the flow of the game. It has good and bad points.
I am all for technology being used to improve the game. Take goal line technology as an example. You can't argue with it. All the years before goal line technology, where it's like, was it over the line? Wasn't it over the line? And then it's only when you've watched a 7th replay from 6 different angles that you realise, it was over the line. You can't argue with it. It's a sensor in the ball, and it's clear as day if it's over the line or not. But that's the point, isn't it? It's clear as day. It's black and white. It's in or it's not. You've hit the nail on the head, and where I have the biggest issue with VAR is the fact that a lot of the decisions are still down to the interpretation of a human being. And that's where I have a problem with VAR, apart from the time it takes for a lot of these things to happen as well. That is a problem, because in a game that I think is not like rugby, and I think benefits massively from momentum, I think some of the length of time these decisions take is crazy, and really takes things out of the game. I also really don't like, again, as we spoke about in our game against Chelsea, I really don't like the impact it has on the emotional joy of the game, where you've got a team celebrating a goal, for example, and then it's taken away for VAR. But I suppose you have to then say, well, if the goal was disallowed because it was legitimately a foul or offside or whatever, then so be it. But the main issue I have with VAR still is the fact that a lot of the decisions that are made with VAR still rely on the interpretation of a human being. And as we've seen over the last few years, some of those decisions cause uproar because people don't agree with them. People have different opinions. Going back to this query about the whole EFL thing and why I, sort of partly in jest, but with a serious sentiment said, I was glad that they've knocked it out, is the fact that you said it's like a simplified version of VAR or some sort of simplified version of VAR. I'm glad they're not doing it, because if we were talking about VAR being at the top level and it being flawless, then I would be all for the listening to a bit more of this and saying, well, okay, well, what's the simplified / watered down version of it? How is that going to look? But when you are starting with a product that is far from perfect, this scares the shit out of me, to be honest with you. So I'm really glad that they've said no to it. I love watching Premier League football, but the one thing that makes me not enjoy a lot of Premier League football these days is VAR.
It's getting very sweaty as we head towards the end of the chip shop. Daz and Jamie are on point, ready to dish dirt and spout shite. Let's look at last week's prediction, shall we? Wrexham versus Stoke City. Daz got a bullseye right towards the end of the season. His sixth of the season. Congratulations, Daz, on a bullseye. Jamie and I both also predicted Wrexham to win, but with that bullseye, Daz gets an extra point. Albania Women versus Cymru Women. We were all only slightly, well, you two were only slightly more hopeful. I was a little bit more. We only won 1-0, but we all got a point for that. And then obviously last night, Oxford United, Jamie and I predicted a draw. Daz predicted a Wrexham win. Couldn't get the bullseye on that one. I remember Jamie saying last week, if Wrexham win... What did you say, Jamie? Couldn't quite get that. If Wrexham win...
What I said was, if Wrexham win, I'll be fucking furious.
That was it.
And as much as I am happy purely from a Wrexham fan perspective that we won the game, for the purposes of this fucking shower of shit, I was fuming. So,
dear. Well, anyway, Jamie's still top. 95 games played, 58 points. Daz is in second, 95 games played, 54 points. Now only 4 points behind Jamie as we head to the last two games. Just remind Jamie had a 10-point lead at one point. Just saying.
I just like the symmetry with Arsenal and Man City at the moment. That's all. So.
Oh my God, are you saying you're Man City?
In this moment, yeah, I've won it before. I know how to win. I know how to close this out.
Fair enough. And then I'm third, 95 games, 48 points.
You're very much the Leicester of the podcast.
Yeah, I am definitely the Leicester of this podcast. No shadow of doubt. Anyway, we only won this tonight. So into the fryer. It's Coventry City. So don't forget, we're playing Sunday, 26th of April. At the Coventry Building Society Arena, kickoff 12 noon BST. Wrexham play Coventry City, now crowned championship champions and first time back in the Premier League for 25 years. I mean, it must be brilliant at the moment to be a Coventry fan, let's be honest. Considering all the horrible stuff they've been through over the last, ground sharing with Birmingham and Northampton they went to as well. They were playing at Northampton for a while. Terrible. They've had it bad. So well done to them. And I'm sure we'll see them back again in 12 months' time. Obviously, we last played them at home on Halloween. Happy birthday, Daz. At the Stoke Kairas, where Wrexham won 3-2, being at that point the first league team to defeat Coventry this season with a fantastic hat-trick from Kiefer Moore. Coventry currently sit top, of course, 10 points ahead of Millwall in second. although that's probably less now, I think, because I think Millwall have won. But happily planning next season already. They don't have to give a monkeys, really, about what's left. Their last 5 results: a 3-2 win at home to Derby County, a 0 draw away at Hull City, a 0-0 draw at home to Sheffield Wednesday, a 1-1 draw away at Blackburn Rovers, and a resounding 5-1 win at home to Portsmouth. And the chips are done. So, Jamie, we're in 6th. We need the points. We've beaten Coventry before, but they are absolutely at the top of their game at the moment. We saw that last night against Portsmouth. What do we need to do? I mean, is a draw
in the goal more than them?
Is a draw enough? Is a draw enough for us?
Well, as I said earlier, there's part of this where you think happy days, because Coventry now have already secured promotion, they've already secured the league. They're not going to give a monkeys. It's more important to us. However, like I said before, it's their last home game of the season, trophy presentation, and the fact that we have already beaten them this season. They are not going to want to lose this game. They are going to want to win this game. So that's a big thing. The other thing from our perspective is we will know the whole result before we play this game, because this is on the Sunday and theirs is on the Saturday. So if they drop points against Charlton, who, as you said earlier on, really need the points now because they've been proper dragged into even though it's still unlikely, they are in that relegation fight. You know, if Charlton can take points off Hull, whether it be 2 or all 3, that potentially gives us another huge opportunity, doesn't it? I don't think Parky will allow the players to have any kind of thoughts on the whole game. He'll very much be concentrate on ourselves, regardless of what they do. He'll have the same game plan. I think the challenge is whether this model that we've adopted the last couple of games of, back to experience, back to defending, back to making it difficult to break down, and then trying to nick a goal or two. Can we do that against Coventry? Because they have got some unbelievable attacking talent. And as we saw last night, with them beating Portsmouth, if it clicks, it'll click and it'll be hard to stop. But the crazy thing is that, regardless of what happens, and even if Hull won on Saturday, we could lose the game and still obviously have a chance. Tough one to predict, as usual.
Daz, loads of people saying, Coventry on the beach. It doesn't matter, they've won everything now. Is that really true when you're league champions like that and it's Frank Lampard who's in charge?
Yeah, no, I bet you for one, no, absolutely, he won't let the team think that way. Whether or not, even with all his wisdom and experience, you could stop players being on the beach. I mean, you just think how long it's been, how much of a challenge it's been, all of that kind of thing. Especially if, I don't know how many of the players are local, but they certainly get the buzz from the crowd. It's a significant, and they're getting presented with the trophy. Do you say on the day as well?
Last home game of the season, yep. So they'll get the trophy.
So it's a huge thing. It's a huge occasion, and I'm wondering if One Eye would be on that occasion as well. So it's lots of factors. But that you said you've already beaten them, so there's a bit of payback, I would imagine. And again, you can't gauge. It's really difficult to predict the Hollywood crosshairs that are on the back of Wrexham every time. People want to just beat Wrexham. I think that's beginning to get a little less. Certainly by next year, I can't see it being that much of it, because every team in the Championship is going to be with all sorts of backstories and stuff like that.
Everybody hates us, does. Everybody hates us. It doesn't.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of envy. There's a lot of jealousy in the sense that there are clubs who would love to what's happened to Wrexham to happen to their club,
Leicester.
and to be done with guys that seem honourable, that seem compassionate and genuine about the prospects of the community as well as the club and the history, and so many decisions they've made have been with a genuine nod to all of that. So I think there are a lot of people who said, "Oh, I'll have their money," but whether or not you want to have the individual's politics come anywhere near your club, Wrexham have got the advantage of this person, or two in this case, seems to be quite nice guys and doing it the right way. I mean, yes, throwing some money, but that's what they've all done. All of these clubs have thrown money at it. It does feel to be done in an honest and a genuine way. Now, whether or not any of your players that were there a couple of years ago would say the same, but that's Parky. I think that's management. And I think that's true of any club that goes through the divisions. If those players are not good enough, sometimes they drift away, whether it's a Mullin or an Elliot Lee or I don't know. It feels like there's always a journey to get into these situations. I think Wrexham have done it with as good decor, a genuine decency all the way through it. So it is envy because it is a fairy tale story, but I think that there's millions of fans out there who would take that offer in a snap if those two were to offer to buy their club and run it the way that they've run it.
Worth remembering that today we're recording this 22nd of April. It's 3 years today to the day that we secured promotion, secured the Championship out of the National League. Crazy to think that was only 3 years ago.
Incredible, absolutely astounding. Jamie, team-wise, obviously we've seen changes in the last 2 games. Do you feel that Parky's going to stick with that? He's going to stick with Ward in goal? Is he going to stick with the back 3 and leave Max out? Is he going to keep Windass in? What's your feelings?
Yes to all. I think the fact that he put Danny Ward back in against Stoke, kept him in against Oxford, and it's 2 clean sheets. He's not going to bring Arthur back in now, is he? I think Danny Ward's there for the last games of the season. Same with the defence again. I know it was the 2 clean sheets, so he's not going to change the back 3. And with Windass again, you can't leave him out, can you? I mean, at the minute he's our best player, so you can't leave him out. I think subject to any injuries or whatever, I think the only change I can really see is that right wing back position, where I think maybe Kabore comes back in for Longman. I'm a bit surprised Lewis O'Brien maybe hasn't been in the team a bit more recently, because I think he's with the greatest respect, I don't think Rathbone has been very effective in recent games. So maybe there's a shout that O'Brien starts instead of Rathbone.
But he's playing deeper. He was playing more like a left wing back last night than he was in his usual position.
Yeah, the fair. I just don't think he's maybe been as I don't think he's impacted the game as much as when he first came. A few weeks ago, he was having a big impact on the game. But I think the only other question mark is up front, isn't it? I mean, obviously he seems to have got to a stage now where Kiefer and Sam Smith are literally on like a 50-50 rotation. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kiefer comes back in. I mean, again, he's been a little bit off the boil, hasn't he? Well, I mean, I think it might have been Rich on what Brian Red said, that he's only scored 1 goal in 2026. Now, granted, he's been injured for a good chunk of it, but still, he's gone massively off the boil. And if you look at the games he's played, or the minutes he's played recently, he's not really had a huge influence on the game. But it does seem to be an even split between him and Smith. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kiefer starts the game. Again, he gives you a bit more physicality in both boxes. So, but yeah, who knows? Parky's done this before, hasn't he? He'll throw a curveball at us from time to time.
Yeah, and we've been here before, haven't we? We remember the Charlton game last year where, Charlton were on fire. They're coming to us and we're thinking it's going to be really difficult. And we ended up absolutely wiping the floor with them. We've done this before. It'll just be very interesting to see whether, because it's going to be massive. Anyway, time for the salt, vinegar and sauce score. Jamie, what's your score prediction for Coventry City versus Wrexham? Just to remind you that if you get 2 completely wrong answers and Daz gets 2 bullseyes, you'll be level on points. Just thought I'd pop that in there.
Do you want to go fuck yourself?
Listen, it's the only joy I have being absolute rock bottom last, so leave me alone, okay? You're having the same agony that I've had this week trying to predict this one.
Honestly, it's impossible because
so tune in next week when Jamie eventually comes up with a score.
Listen, apart from the fact that it's a really, really, really hard game to predict a score for,
yes,
it's squeaky bum time for this fucking league now.
You're 4 points in the lead.
I know that, but as well, there's that whole there's that whole home and away advantage as well because I'm having to go first, so obviously I have to show my hand first, don't I?
Well, if it gets close next week, I will get you to send them in independently, so there can be no favoritism from that point.
Oh no, it is what it is. It is what it is. I think we're going to lose 3-1.
Wow. Daz, what's your score prediction for Coventry City versus Wrexham?
I've gone 2-1 defeat.
I've got absolutely nothing to lose. So finally, for once, I can go with my heart rather than my head. I'm going to predict a 2-2 draw. I've seen Wrexham dance this dance and be written off and have come through. And I think we're going to get a draw. And I think that's going to be beneficial because we'll go to the last game knowing that we have options. So I'm going to go 2-2. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And we'll be reviewing this game in next week's pod. So there we go, over for another week. Next week, we look back at Wrexham's visit to the Blues and see whether we can keep the dream alive of being in the playoffs. And we look forward to the last game of the regular season as we are at home to fellow playoff chasing Middlesbrough. Please let us know by the usual channels, social media, and by email. We welcome your comments and your questions, as we always do. Of course, I'll be with these two. Jamie will either be celebrating, because he'll know by that point that he's in a strong position and he's looking at that silverware sitting on his desk, or Daz has come up on the rails and taken him from behind. Who knows?
To be fair, even if I am still 4 points ahead next week or whatever, I'm not until you reveal the result. I'm not celebrating nothing.
Did I tell you about the special clause that if your name's Daz, you get an extra 10 points?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah, And if you have a brother you tried to kill more than 10 times when he was a kid, you lose 10 points. So fuck that.
More than that. Anyway, we'll do all this next week. So, thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thank you, Daz.
You're welcome.
I'm Welshtechie, and until next week, if you're in Coventry, come and say hello. I'll be there, looking bleary-eyed because I'll have left the house a ridiculous o'clock, so I can get the free bus. Didn't mention that. Club have put on free buses for the Coventry City game. Well done to them, because the ticket price is at £45 a ticket is absolutely extortionate.
45 quid a ticket.
I know, you should be ashamed of yourselves. So I'll be taking advantage of the free bus. So I'm going to drive to Wrexham and leave my car in Wrexham and go on the supporters bus. So yes. So if you see us, say hello. Yeah, we'll see you next week. And until then, come on, Cymru, and come on the town.
Eat more.
Clinton, 1-0. Thomas, after like a goal. That's number 5.
He's it through to Bellamy. Craig Bellamy. It's 2-1 Wales. Craig Bellamy. Tony Hughes for Wrexham into the lead.
And that's it! Wrexham are champions! Wrexham are champions! Wrexham are the FA Trophy winners 2013! Alex Cross, great ball! Equaliser! Elliot Lee!
Back to back to back promotions. Oh, can you believe it?
The Eat More Chips podcast.